Updated, entitled Ex ghosted my friend, then demands a room in our house. Original post. This isn't my ex, but my best friend's ex. She and I have been friends for years and live together now. And now we live with my parents who adore her like their own daughter. I got her permission to post this. My friend, 30 female, came to the US from Latin America at 19 as a student. She also started dating her ex, 29 male, after many years of hanging with each other during vacations and online. I knew them both since high school and they seemed good together. She tried to convince him to move together a few years before their breakup. He was living with his parents who wanted him to leave. At this point, she had already finished college and had a job in the US that granted her a visa. He had quit college and worked part-time. From what I can gather, he didn't want to leave his parents' place because free food and no rent. So instead, she asked me if I wanted to move in with her so that we could afford a bigger place. I said yes, and we moved together, adopted a cat and a dog, and pretty much became Grace and Frankie. Around the start of the pandemic, things got bad for them. This is what I was told and what I saw. They never talked or hung out or anything. I was in a breakup at that time myself, so I wasn't really on top since I had my own issues. But my friend cried so much, she didn't even get a happy birthday. After a year of no contact, she assumed the relationship was over. She changed all of her social media to single, which he could see, took him off her emergency contacts at work and at her doctor's, and just moved on with her life. This year, my stepdad's health has gone downhill, and my mom needs help caring for him. She works full-time as a therapist. I work from home and my job is very flexible. So I put in the idea of all of us living together. I'll care for my dad. Eventually, I'll care for my mom too. My mom loved the idea and asked my bestie if she wanted to move in with us too so that we could all be together, and also because at this point, I can't see myself not being in the same house as her. We've come to terms in being single ladies. Heck, we've joked that one of us should adopt and we've become parent-aunt dynamic. And now the joke is even more serious since I'm considering it and she's incredibly supportive. No, we're not dating. She's straight and I'm bi. We're just incredibly close after all the BS that we've been through together. We found a perfect house, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, enough space, a yard, everything we need. And we got it after a bunch of difficulties and arrangements. Since I don't have immediate plans for adopting yet, I have a ton of paperwork and years of planning ahead. We made the extra room into our office gaming hub. We both work at the same place, totally on purpose. They were hiring and we both needed visas. And as proud first-time homeowners, we posted pictures. Her ex, who by this point has been MIA for 3 years, messaged her saying he was so excited to move into the new house. She told him this was her house with me and my parents. He said since they were a couple, she should kick me and my parents out so that he could move in. I want to point out that my parents bought the house. We, friend and I, will pay them our parts over the years. And if she decides to move out, I'll finish paying and I'll buy her part out. This is all in paper and signed. So she obviously told him he was not moving in with us and that he ghosted her so there was no relationship. He went on a tirade that he never broke up with her, that she was abandoning him, that she never cared about him, etc. I got pissed off, took the phone from her and told him he could live in a bear cave for all I care, but to leave my friend and our house alone. He went ballistic and began calling us some names, referring to the LGBTQ plus community. That would probably get this post flagged, so I'll leave it to your imagination. My friend started crying and I was absolutely done with him. I never thought he was abusive, but my friend confessed to me that this was not new. He always had issues with the two of us living together and accused her often of cheating on him with me. We ended the call, and I told her she needed to block him for her own sanity's sake. She deserves so much better than this man-child. She got me to leave my abusive ex when I was in high school. She took me to the hospital when he beat me up and called my parents. My friend is family and I'll be dead before I let some bastard with commitment issues make her suffer. Since then, he's gone on a major campaign in our friend group to say my friend abandoned him and left him homeless since apparently he canceled his lease after he saw that we bought a house. He also claims we're lesbian Satanists that probably abuse our pets and are mooching off my parents. Most of my friends know the story and know my friend and I moved together at first out of necessity, then we just don't see ourselves not living together. So yeah, my friend's ex is a nutcase, and if he ever gets close to her again, I will personally give him a free vasectomy. Now my opinion for OP. Just stay away from this guy. You may want to consider a restraining order, and yes, he's a nutcase, I can tell. And who does he think he is? He can go MIA for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, wow, he can just jump right back into her life again, especially when he sees that she just got a house? Well, no, that's not happening. So best of luck to you, OP. Update 1. Hey everyone, a bit quick on the update, but some people asked if our friends knew where the ex was hiding for 3 years, and I was actually curious. Since I was down for the count at work today, I had time to check with my friends and found out more. Apparently, my bestie did ask them, but they didn't know. From what they tell me, he kind of got back into everyone's life in the last year or so, but he was part of the group because they were besties' friends, not really his. I don't personally know many of his own friends, to be fair. I did track down the ex's sister, thanks to social media, and poked her for information. She's very nice and always treated my bestie right. I told her what her brother did, and her response was very interesting. Apparently, the ex was dating other girls until his parents decided to move outside the US. He's now living on a friend's couch. The last she heard was a couple of days past when they went out for coffee. He was saying he got this brand new house and was going to be moving in this week. As far as she knew, my bestie begged him to take her back and let her live in his house. I did correct her and said that no, bestie is living with me and my parents in our new house. Her reaction was, of course he lied, and just thanked me for letting her know he was bullshitting. Aside from that, I do want to report that we are safe. He doesn't know where we live, and most people don't because we're not really ready to open Pandora's box and have friends come over. We also need time to figure out who we want in the know. We won't be going to the police unless something serious happens because this is technically not a crime. But we are going to keep records and printing text conversations. If he tries anything, we have all our papers in order, and just in case, I plan to contact our company's HR so they know the situation. The company we work for can provide us free legal counsel if things get bad. Update 2. As my first post said, my friend's ex ghosted her and then decided to try to move in with her and by extension me after years of no contact. My friend told him where he can go. For a bit, it was actually pretty calm. She did cut contact and block him as many suggested. And between the two of us, my bestie and I did some culling in our friend group of people we knew were passing information to her ex. We've settled in the new house together, and she actually gets along better with my parents sometimes than I do. Guess she's the golden child now. Sadly, eventually we had to adult and get much needed food. We went to Walmart in town together, and by some bad luck, we crossed paths with her ex. I wish all of it was just awkward glances and each on their way, but no. At first, he tried to talk to her. My friend said that she didn't want to speak to him and didn't want him near her. I mostly reminded him I wanted to rip his spine and beat him to death with it. Sadly, that didn't deter him from following us around like the most obnoxious toilet paper stuck to his shoe. We did her shopping and headed to the car with him, still after us. I told my friend for her to get into the car and start the gear and lock it while I loaded the groceries. Her ex then decided to appeal to me to talk to my friend about taking him back. I don't know what power held me back from committing a felony, but pretty sure I've earned a PhD in self-control. I told him in no uncertain terms where he could put his reconciliation and that if he kept following us, I will make sure his legs were out of the equation. I got in the car and my friend began driving back when we noticed a car following us, and we knew it was following because the direction we were going was not usual. To rule out a possible neighbor, we actually did a full U-turn almost back to the store, stopped to get some fast food, ate in the parking lot, and then headed back again home. And the same car was after us. Now, as much as I talk of violence, I have to admit I was terrified. So was my friend. Neither of us has a gun permit. Best we carry is a can of pepper spray. And we know her ex does have guns, so yeah, we were not comfortable at that point. Instead, we headed past our neighborhood and followed the usual advice from TV and drove to a police station. Once in it, we did write a statement and got scolded about the confrontation in the Walmart's parking lot. The reason we know it's her ex because when we got home, she got a call from him in a new phone number saying, "I know where you live now." We immediately called the police, so there's where we stand. Cops just left a few minutes ago, and my brother is going to be staying over for a few weeks until we get the RO and some sturdier locks. Also, want to clarify a few things. A lot of people asked why originally my friend took a whole year of being ghosted to accept the relationship was over. While I get it, trust me, please understand that when my friend came to the US, she had no one. She's cut contact with her toxic family. She literally only had her ex. I moved into the US a year later and also came alone at first, but my parents were able to become citizens and I had them. When her relationship died out, she lost not just her boyfriend, but his family, who pretty much were as close to her own family as she could get. It's not easy, and I personally can't imagine how lonely she felt. I could spend Christmas with my parents. She had no one that first year, so please don't judge her on it, because she doesn't deserve it. It's not easy to be an immigrant when you have no place to return to. Update 3. This is an ongoing mess with my 29 female best friend, 30 female, ex, 29 male, and now her ex mother-in-law. I have her permission to post this. Now my bestie never married her ex, but for simplicity's sake, I'll refer to her ex's parents as ex-mother-in-law and ex-father-in-law. Bestie and I live together with my parents in a newly bought house. She's pretty much a daughter to my parents, and we are platonic life partners by this point. Her ex ghosted her for 3 years and has been hounding her ever since he found out we bought a house, trying to get her to take him back and live in our house. We've tried reaching to the police, but since nothing serious has happened, we've reached a wall and can only wait. Her ex-in-laws no longer live in the US, but they come for Thanksgiving. Though my bestie is no longer dating their son, she offers to pick them up at the airport and take them to their hotel. Reason I was told was that they would do that for her when she was in college. I didn't like it since her ex is a problem, but she wanted to use the chance to ask her ex's parents to intervene and maybe get him off her back. I still didn't like it, but I figured they probably were okay based on how she described them. And I was completely wrong. My bestie arrived in tears with a scratched cheek. Immediately I asked her what had happened, and now I'm seeing red. The next part comes from how my bestie described things to me. Bestie told me picking them up went well and they had talked about the old days. They asked my bestie if they could stop in a nearby restaurant that they always liked, and bestie, being her usual self, decided to treat them to lunch. All hell broke loose at the restaurant though. Apparently her ex, mother-in-law, demanded to know why bestie did not take her abusive stock ex back. According to ex-mother-in-law, my bestie is responsible for her baby boy since she was his first girlfriend and they were married in the eyes of God. To start, they never legally married, and bestie is an atheist, so yeah. Bestie tried to defuse the situation, explaining she's moved on with her life after 3 years not knowing where he was. She did try to ask her ex-mother-in-law to convince her son to leave her alone and that bestie just doesn't want him in her life anymore. Ex-father-in-law seemed to agree with her and apologized for all the heartache and pain that she went through. Ex-mother-in-law, however, took the conversation and began screaming that thanks to my bestie, her son had no life. That apparently my bestie was responsible for her firstborn not having a wife or children. The least she could do is take responsibility and become the submissive wife he deserved. Ex-father-in-law tried to pull his wife away, more than likely because they were causing a very public scene. Bestie simply said that she would not ever consider marriage to her ex. She then said it might be best to take the food to go and for them to go to their hotel. She paid all the food despite ex-father-in-law offering to cover his and his wife's meal and drove them to the hotel. At the hotel is where things went from 1 to 100. Ex-mother-in-law had spent the whole drive escalating demands, from taking him back to marrying him to have a child and give her son the house as the man in the relationship. Ex-father-in-law apparently kept telling her to stop, but there was no way that she could be quiet. Finally, my bestie had enough, stopped the car and told ex-mother-in-law she will never take a failure of a man like her baby boy as a husband, let alone give birth to his spawn. That she was glad no other woman had stayed long-term with him since he really won't be a good addition to the gene pool. I gotta admit, I'm proud of her for that last one. Ex-mother-in-law went crazy and jumped on my friend. Her husband luckily grabbed her, but she still managed to get my friend on the cheek. She began screaming she was the reason her family had split, called her a whore, with a different word, and said she wished our house burnt with all of us inside. Ex-father-in-law just told my friend to drop their bags on the sidewalk and drive away while he held back his demon of a wife, and Bestie did exactly that. Next thing that she did was drive back to us. She was not so much hurt by the insults or even the attack, but more the notion that a woman she once saw as a second mother would treat her like this. I told her just to relax a bit. So she's watching some movies with the dogs while I write this and do some work. Tomorrow, we're both calling out and just having a girls' day with my mom. I did get in touch with the ex's sister and let her know what happened. She already knew from her dad and asked me if Bestie was pressing charges. She should, but she's not. I tried to convince her, but it's a sore topic for her, so for her emotional well-being, I'm not going to push it. The sister said that she appreciates we're not pressing charges and that she will make sure her family doesn't bother us in any way. Apparently, she already had her brother moved outside the city, not sure how or where, but I'm glad he's gone. So hopefully we're done. We're going to avoid going out too often until we know the ex-monster-in-law is gone from the city. It's not a small city by any means, but I wouldn't put it past these crazies to try to stalk my bestie. Update. After Thanksgiving dinner, my mom sat with my bestie to have a serious talk. She told her she didn't want to diagnose her, but she was showing clear signs that she needed help, and therapy would be an option. They had a discussion about it, and my friend agreed to seek professional help. Since she lives with my mom, she's not an option, but my mom is going to find her someone. We just came from filing a police report. My friend won't press charges, but we made a paper trail to ensure that it's at least on the record. She apologized for not doing it immediately and for going to meet her ex-in-laws. I told her I understand she's going through a lot of things. We'll see how things go, but she's like a sister to me and I refuse to let her go through it alone. As for people saying I have feelings for her, please stop. Like, seriously stop. She's my family. I don't see her in any romantic or sexual way. It's annoying that people assume just because I'm bi and have strong friendships, it means I have romantic feelings. And to the person who made the comment about her ex-in-laws being entitled or Muslim, that it's inappropriate and extremely racist. It's the same mentality that my friend and I have to constantly deal with because we're Hispanics. I seriously dislike people like this. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she is a hypocrite to judge us for not adopting when she only adopted as a last resort? I, 27 male, am married to an amazing wife, Eve, 27 female. We are unable to have children together naturally. Our fertility doctor has said our best chance of having biological children is IVF, and we are now working our butts off to make that happen for us. My family is aware of our struggles to conceive, and they know that we have decided to pursue IVF. My sister Jane, 43 female, has been vocally outspoken about her disgust at our decision. She told us that Eve being adopted, she should be thinking of adoption before any form of fertility treatment. She has ranted about how IVF is unethical and how we are going to F our kids up for life. She has focused most of her ire on Eve, and I have stepped in each and every time and told her to knock it off and to keep her opinions to herself. She questions Eve every step of the way about rejecting adoption and how her family must feel to know she would rather have her own bio baby instead of adopting when they adopted her. Eve opened up to Jane, which is something I did not think she needed to, and I told Eve as much, but she wanted to. She told Jane that adoption is not always an ethical option And while it can be such an amazing thing and bring so much joy to everyone, adoption is nowhere close to perfect. She also opened up about feeling on the outside her whole life because she looked at like nobody in her family would always pass comments about her siblings. Bio kids of her parents looked like family members, and comments were often made about twins meeting lookalikes. How, as the only kid who never got that and the kid who was different, it weighs on you. She said her parents and siblings loved her as much as their own, and she loved them, but she always knew the extended family saw her as the adopted child, as the child that wasn't really theirs. She mentioned how both her birth parents rejected her when she reached out for contact, and how it all made her long for a genetic connection to the family she creates. She told Jane that she can have that. It will just cost, but she could not in good conscience adopt when it would be her last choice. Jane called her names and told her she was disgusting and should be ashamed for viewing things this way. Eve was so upset after talking to Jane. Then Jane called me a few days later and told me I should talk to Eve about how she needs to fix her thinking. I hated hearing my sister say that about my wife, and I told Jane that she was the biggest hypocrite going because she only adopted her kids as a last result after being told again and again that IUI and IVF would not work for her and that surrogacy wouldn't either. I told her we never judged her for how she started her family, but I did judge her for having gone through all that and being so hard on Eve. I told her it was disgusting and she should be doing better. Jane told me I had no business throwing her infertility in her face, and she told me to go F myself. Am I the a-hole? And now for the advice. Not the a-hole. Eve needs to block Jane. I would suggest you do too, but your wife at least needs to be protected. Jane is heartless. She has a lot of nerve disregarding Eve's lived experience being an adoptee and needs to stay in her lane. I have suggested this to her. She said that she would do it, but it needs a follow-up. That's something that frustrates me even more. Eve has more firsthand experience than my sister. My sister can speak from POV of someone who adopted her kids. Eve can speak from a POV of an adoptee and an adoptee who had a happier story than some but still had a complicated adoption at the same time. Yeah, Eve knows better than anyone how traumatic adoption can be, and that it isn't always a fairy tale. She didn't judge Jane for adopting and didn't even give her personal information on adoption until pushed by Jane. So Jane has no right to lash at her. Jane needs therapy, but you and Eve should not stick around to continually be interrogated, judged, and insulted by her. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you.